Japan has one of the lowest obesity rates in the world. Scientists discovered 3 key strategies they use. Here's how they work. Before we talk about solutions, you need to understand what you're fighting. There are 2 main types of belly fat: subcutaneous fat, the soft fat you can pinch under your skin, and visceral fat, the deeper fat stored inside the abdominal cavity around your internal organs. Visceral fat is metabolically active. It releases inflammatory cytokines and free fatty acids that contribute to insulin resistance and increase your risk of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome, and certain cancers. A significant proportion of adults, including more than 1/3 of Americans, have excess visceral fat, often without realizing it. You cannot directly see visceral fat, but an increased waist circumference is a strong clinical marker that it may be present. The good news? Research, including studies from Japanese investigators, has identified science-backed strategies that specifically reduce visceral fat, and none of them require extreme dieting or hours in the gym. Japan has one of the lowest obesity rates among developed nations, roughly 4 to 5%, compared to over 40% in the United States. This is not purely genetics. Lifestyle, dietary patterns, portion size, food environment, and daily activity levels play a major role. Traditional Japanese dietary patterns tend to be lower in total calories and saturated fat, and higher in fish, vegetables, soy, seaweed, and green tea. These patterns are associated with lower visceral fat accumulation and improved metabolic markers compared to typical Western diets. Researchers have observed that certain components common in Japanese diets, such as catechins from green tea and bioactive compounds from soy and marine foods, are associated with modest reductions in body fat and visceral fat in clinical studies. Some beverages, particularly green tea, rich in catechins, have been shown to slightly reduce fat absorption and increase fat oxidation, although the effects are moderate and depend on overall diet and energy balance. Their approach to movement also emphasizes daily consistency, such as regular walking and active commuting, rather than relying only on high-intensity workouts. These findings are published in peer-reviewed journals. Today, I'm going to show you 3 evidence-based strategies rooted in Japanese research that specifically target visceral fat. The first strategy, carotenoids. These are natural pigments found in orange, red, and yellow vegetables. Think carrots, sweet potatoes, pumpkin, bell peppers, and tomatoes. Japanese dietary patterns are relatively high in these vegetables, and research shows carotenoid status is associated with lower levels of visceral fat. A large observational study published in the British Journal of Nutrition followed over 1,000 adults and found that higher blood levels of specific carotenoids, particularly beta-carotene and lycopene, were significantly associated with lower visceral fat area. Individuals in the highest quartile of circulating carotenoids had less visceral adiposity compared to those in the lowest quartile, even after adjusting for total energy intake and lifestyle factors. It is important to note this was an association, not proof of direct causation. So how might carotenoids contribute? First, higher carotenoid levels are associated with improved insulin sensitivity and better glycemic control. Improved insulin sensitivity reduces the hormonal drive toward excess fat storage, particularly in the visceral compartment. Second, carotenoids have antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. Since visceral fat is linked with chronic low-grade inflammation, higher intake of carotenoid-rich foods may help reduce systemic inflammatory markers, which is associated with better metabolic outcomes. Third, experimental research suggests some carotenoids may influence adipocyte biology, including gene expression related to fat storage and oxidative metabolism. This does not mean they directly burn fat, but they may support a metabolic environment that favors healthier fat distribution. Japanese population data also show that higher vegetable intake, including carotenoid-rich vegetables, is associated with lower waist circumference and improved metabolic markers. The practical takeaway: eat orange, red, and yellow vegetables daily. Aim for at least 2 to 3 servings. Raw carrots, roasted sweet potatoes, bell peppers and stir fries, tomato-based dishes. These are common components of traditional Japanese meals for a reason. The second strategy, green tea, specifically the catechin compounds within it. Japanese adults commonly drink multiple cups of green tea daily. This is not just cultural, it has biochemical relevance. Green tea contains catechins, particularly epigallocatechin galactose, or EGCG, which has been extensively studied for its effects on fat metabolism. Here is what the research shows. Meta-analyses of randomized controlled trials report that green tea catechins produce modest but statistically significant reductions in body weight, body fat percentage, and waist circumference, especially when combined with habitual caffeine intake. The magnitude of effect is small but consistent across several trials. Some clinical studies using imaging techniques, including CT scans, suggest reductions in abdominal fat area with catechin supplementation. However, the evidence does not conclusively prove that visceral fat is preferentially reduced over subcutaneous fat in all populations. The overall effect appears to be a reduction in total abdominal adiposity. How does it work? First, EGCG may inhibit catechol-O methyltransferase, or COMT. By partially inhibiting this enzyme, norepinephrine activity can be prolonged, which may enhance thermogenesis and fat oxidation. This effect is more pronounced when catechins are combined with caffeine. Second, green tea catechins have been shown in experimental models to inhibit pancreatic lipase, which could modestly reduce fat absorption. In humans, this effect appears mild and not comparable to pharmacologic lipase inhibitors, but it may contribute slightly to reduced energy absorption. Third, catechins may influence gene expression related to fat metabolism, including pathways involved in fat oxidation and lipid synthesis. Most of this evidence comes from mechanistic and animal studies with supportive but limited confirmations in humans. The practical application: drink 3 to 4 cups of brewed green tea daily. Avoid bottled versions with added sugar. Consistency matters. Green tea can be consumed with or after meals, although the overall metabolic benefit depends more on total daily intake than precise timing. The third strategy: exercise, but not the way most people do it. Here's where Japanese research gets really interesting. There's an ongoing debate: is steady-state cardio or high-intensity interval training better for reducing belly fat? The answer is both, but it depends on your current metabolic health, fitness level, and stress balance. A study published in the Journal of Obesity analyzed the effects of different exercise intensities on visceral fat. They found that moderate intensity continuous exercise like brisk walking or light jogging for 30 to 45 minutes was highly effective at reducing visceral fat, especially in adults who are overweight or have metabolic syndrome. Moderate intensity activity favors fat oxidation as a primary energy source. Here's the nuance: high-intensity interval training, or HIIT, may not be ideal for everyone. Intense exercise acutely increases cortisol, the stress hormone. If cortisol is chronically elevated due to stress, poor sleep, or metabolic dysfunction, intense exercise could theoretically blunt fat loss or make visceral fat harder to reduce temporarily. Japanese research emphasizes consistency and sustainability over intensity. Long-term daily moderate activity, like walking, has been associated with significant reductions in visceral fat compared to sporadic, intense workouts. The key is cumulative energy expenditure and maintaining healthy stress hormone levels. Once a metabolic foundation is established, meaning reduced initial visceral fat, improved insulin sensitivity, and managed stress, incorporating 1 to 2 HIIT sessions per week can enhance fat loss. HIIT increases post-exercise oxygen consumption, which can raise calorie burn for several hours after the workout. It also improves mitochondrial function, supporting more efficient energy metabolism. The Japanese approach: start with daily moderate intensity movement, 30 to 45 minutes of walking, cycling, or swimming. After you build consistency and reduce initial visceral fat, gradually add 1 to 2 HIIT sessions per week. This progressive approach respects your body's stress response and optimizes fat loss while minimizing burnout risk. So, here's your complete science-backed Japanese strategy for burning belly fat. First, focus on carotenoids from orange, red, and yellow vegetables. Aim for 2 to 3 servings daily. These compounds are associated with improved insulin sensitivity, reduced inflammation, and healthier fat distribution. Second, drink 3 to 4 cups of brewed green tea each day. The catechins in green tea may modestly reduce fat absorption, support fat oxidation by prolonging norepinephrine activity, and contribute to healthier abdominal fat metabolism. This is biology, not wishful thinking. Third, move consistently with moderate intensity exercise. Walk, cycle, or swim for 30 to 45 minutes daily. After 2 to 3 months of consistent activity and improved metabolic health, you can add 1 to 2 HIIT sessions per week to accelerate results. Consistency is more important than intensity in the early stages. Into daily routines over the long term, not followed for a few weeks and abandoned. Research shows that this combination is associated with reductions in visceral fat, the type linked to higher risk of metabolic disease. You're not just losing weight, you're supporting better metabolic health and reducing long-term disease risk. Remember, visceral fat isn't just about appearance, it's about your health, your longevity, and your quality of life. Populations in Japan maintain some of the lowest obesity rates in the world, not through extreme measures, but through consistent, science-backed daily habits. Eat your colorful vegetables, drink your green tea, move your body consistently. These 3 strategies work together to support reductions in visceral fat, the type most closely linked to metabolic disease risk. You don't need supplements or extreme diets. Evidence-based nutrition and sustainable movement are enough. Your body can improve its fat metabolism, and these strategies give it the environment to do so. Start today, not tomorrow. Today. Your future self is counting on you. If this video gave you a clear, science-backed plan to support reductions in stubborn belly fat, hit that like button and subscribe for more evidence-based health strategies. Your organs, your heart, and your future self will thank you. Now go eat a carrot and brew some green tea.